green principles for some time, and it's a great example of green building and green operation techniques of building that I feel a little pride of ownership in because I was involved with this project when I was mayor of Richmond. It is matching some things that we're doing at the state level to make sure that construction at the state level, state buildings going forward are done according to LEED principles. We are all very aware that the headlines over the last few months have been very sobering about the national economy. We're seeing challenges in the financial markets, and challenges in consumer confidence and other areas that we haven't seen in our lifetimes. And that creates significant anxiety. I'm going to be giving a budget, the Money Committee speech next week to the legislature that is not going to have a lot of good news because families are hurting and businesses are hurting. But there isn't any reason when times are tough just to kind of retrench. We ought to be looking to innovate. And I want to make the last year, as I sort of planned to do from the beginning of my time as governor, I want to make the last year of my governor's term a year that's very focused on energy and the environment. We've done a lot of energy and environment work already. We were moving toward a deregulated energy market that would have probably been disastrous, and we have re-regulated energy and put incentives in place for clean production, use of renewable fuels for the first time. We have fought with a whole lot of partners to dramatically expand the pace of open space conservation in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And we put about $700 million into Chesapeake Bay cleanup in the nearly 3 years that I've been governor. So we've been doing a lot. But this is a year where we're really going to try to accelerate and do even more. And so I'm happy to announce that over the course of the next year, we're going to do a multifaceted series of initiatives that we're going to kind of all have under the umbrella label of Renew Virginia. I just had a great meeting with folks who are standing with me today. These are private sector executives representing 10 leading firms of both conventional and leading edge alternative energy technology companies that are active here in Virginia. Their real world advice and insight on one facet of the Renew Virginia initiative is going to help us craft future proposals that we're going to lay out between now and the beginning of the legislative session. Let's talk a little bit about Renew Virginia broadly and then come back to the green jobs topic we were just talking about. My team from a couple of the cabinet secretariats, natural resources and also commerce and trade, and then environmental advocates and thinkers and academics across Virginia have been working over the past number of months to identify legislative and administrative actions to promote greater environmental stewardship, to promote energy conservation and efficiency, and also to incentivize alternative energy research in the Commonwealth. We have and will continue to gather input from policy experts, the private sector, and use the recommendations that we just obtained last week from our Commission on Climate Change, especially those dealing with conservation, to move the Renew Virginia initiative forward. Renew Virginia will have a couple of different components. One will be the legislative package, which we'll start rolling out likely right after Christmas. The legislative package will include items to improve energy conservation, encourage green businesses to relocate to the Commonwealth, and help create a customer base for those green businesses that are already here. We will be announcing next week in the speech to the Money Committee some budgetary initiatives that will combine with these policy initiatives. We'll be announcing some executive directives that I can do with my executive power without legislative approval that are non-budgetary items where we can move forward. Examples that we've already done is the executive order commanding that state construction work will be done to LEED specifications. I'm also fortunate to be in a leadership role in 2 interstate coalitions this year. I'm the chairman of the Southern Governors Association, and I'm leading an effort among Southern governors to develop an energy and climate strategy. There are 4 regional governors associations, and the Southern Governors Association is the only one where there is not a regional strategy to deal with climate and energy issues. And so I'm working on that in conjunction with the SGA. And last month I also was elected chairman of the Chesapeake Bay the Executive Council of the Chesapeake Bay program within EPA, and we'll be working with our counterparts in DC, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania to focus intensely on Chesapeake Bay cleanup efforts. Finally, we're also going to be taking advantage of some innovative partnerships with others. Last week, some of you were with us when we announced the first of these innovative partnerships that will be part of Renew Virginia, a first of its kind in the nation partnership between the state and the Department of Defense. We're going to be working with every Department of Defense installation in Virginia, covering nearly 275,000 acres of Virginia land to work with these DoD installations on state-of-the-art environmental stewardship programs. The DoD is very excited about this, and they want to encourage stewardship on these military bases, and we hope to do a great job here and then inspire other states to enter into similar partnerships. But to move to the green jobs area, I indicated that these are representatives of companies in a variety of different areas, production, but also end-use and conservation companies, traditional energy as well as alternative and new technologies. And we talked about the fact that we want to inspire companies like these to create more green jobs in Virginia, and the creation and incentivizing the creation of green jobs will be a key part of the New Virginia initiative. A recent study by the University of California, Berkeley, found that California's conservation efforts over the last 20 years have generated a net 1 million jobs. There have been some things done in those initiatives that have cost jobs, but the net growth, because of the investment in these new technologies, has been a positive for the California economy. I asked for this meeting in order to gain perspective from private sector leaders, some from long-standing companies and some from new small businesses, about what Virginia needs to do to position itself as a nationally recognized state for attracting and growing green energy technologies. Now, we've recently had some significant and powerful economic development wins on the green energy front, such as Osage Bioenergy, who's represented here today, a plant that will convert barley, a winter crop that has a significant advantage in helping farms and also helping avoid nutrient runoff into the Chesapeake Bay because of its use as a cover crop in the winter. This barley can be converted to biodiesel. That was a recently announced project that's been worked on hard in the Richmond area. In addition, many of you were with us 6 weeks or so ago when we announced really one-of-a-kind partnership in the United States, the partnership between Areva and Northrop Grumman, to begin building components for next-generation nuclear facilities in the United States for the first time in about 30 years. These components will be to replace components in existing nuclear plants, the more than 100 existing nuclear plants in the United States that are old and that will need replacement components, but will also, the investment was also a bet that nuclear energy, which is greenhouse gas free, is going to make a comeback in the United States because of the fact that it's been operated safely in other nations. Finally, some of you were with us at an event recently down east of Hopewell, an example of our universities, Old Dominion University doing innovative research in algae to biodiesel. Between ODU, the city of Hopewell is involved, other private sector individuals, and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation is involved in that as well. So we've had some wins on the green energy front, but what we want to do is take advantage of the expertise that's been offered here today, and we've talked about issues such as incentives, workforce, site challenges, and also what our universities can do, not just on the workforce side, but on the research side, to help accelerate our efforts. And so we're going to build upon this dialogue that we have going today and some of our existing strengths to take this green job sector of the economy, where we've had some recent wins, and try to accelerate. I'm pleased to announce that under the leadership of Pat Gottschall, my Secretary of Commerce and Trade, we're forming an interagency task force on energy project recruitment. The task force will gather advice and insight from these private sector leaders and others, and will work with the state marketing and business development arm, the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, to build Virginia's compelling business case for green jobs expansion. We know we've got a great business climate generally, that Forbes.com every year acknowledging us as a great state to do business, and we've had others, is a tribute to the overall positive business climate in Virginia. But if I would, point out just in kind of a lovingly critical way, we try to be great overall and have a level playing field so that all businesses can have a chance to succeed here. And we've done pretty well there, but we haven't maybe been as good at targeting particular kinds of business where we hope to see significant improvement. This green jobs area is one, and the discussions we've had today will enable us to move forward. Expanding energy research and development in Virginia is on the R&D side, in addition to the green jobs, is going to be very critical. I'm thrilled that the Virginia Tobacco Commission recently voted to approve $32 million for 5 energy research centers in the Commonwealth, in Wise County, Bedford County, Danville, Halifax, and Abington, each looking at different energy research technologies that they want to incentivize and inspire in those regions. And as we move forward with the advice of these leaders and others, we hope to identify other opportunities like this. With these changes and the budgetary and policy announcements that will roll out in the coming weeks, Virginia has the potential to create tens of thousands of green jobs by 2025. This was a number that was recently delivered to Virginia, and I think in a study that was a very positive study by the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy, did a study in September 2008, talked about a series of things. One area that we'll focus on is the potential for much greater strategies toward conservation, but the ACEEE study also talked about the green jobs potential using assets that we have right here in Virginia. I will pledge that we're going to continue to reach out to seek private sector expertise. We've got some examples of solar, Osage Bioenergy, and a little plug for Areva, our partner that I discussed here, our little visual aids, but we've got some good wins and some good partners already, but there's much more that we can do, and in a time of economic challenge, I think it's smart that we are focusing not just on what needs to be cut, but where we need to make more investments to get Virginia's economy to grow, and grow in a way that's future-oriented. So with that, we'll kick off the Interagency Task Force that will begin work in January with the advice of these and others, and we will look forward to starting to roll out more Renew Virginia initiatives in the budget speech next week, and then in the legislative rollout we will begin right after Christmas. And with that, I'd love to open it up and answer any questions. Please, Rob.
You've referenced some challenges in the budget that you're going to announce next year. What is all of this that you've mentioned? What is this going to cost the state?
Rob, I'm going to save the budget speech for the budget, so what I'll do is I'll talk about it that day. Obviously, this is not the best year for huge new investments, although just as last year, we didn't have new money last year really, but we found money for mental health reform, foster care reform, and pre-K. We will find new money for a couple of key initiatives this year, and trying to promote these Renew Virginia initiatives will be one of the things we'll devote new money to. And we'll go into the details about that when I roll out the budget next Wednesday. Please.
You think you have bipartisan support for it?
My sense is yes. I think that these issues, just to use an example, the two things that we've done that have been most salient in terms of environmental stewardship thus far have been open space preservation and heavy investments in the Chesapeake Bay. And they've both been completely bipartisan. We've not had any significant difference either across the houses or across the parties on those issues. When we realized that moving toward deregulation in the electric market would have created severe challenges for many Virginians and decided to re-regulate the electric market, that was also done in a bipartisan way. So, you know, you never want to guarantee anything and then jinx yourself, but I think that there is enough of a consensus that pushing environmental stewardship and energy efficiency and alternative energy research is a great thing for the future, that I doubt this will seem, that this will probably not be an issue of partisan controversy.
Jim. Thank you, Governor. You sat down with these gentlemen for a while. They gave you their ideas for incentives. What incentives are they seeking?
Well, it would be wrong to say that any of these guys are seeking incentives. They didn't beat a path to my door. I asked them to come to the meeting, so they're not here as supplicants, but they are here to tell us what other states are doing. So, for example, other states provide significantly more incentives for use of solar energy for end users. We began, as many of you know, just something that I campaigned on, a sales tax credit for purchase of energy efficient appliances. That's something we started last year, again this year. It's catching on, people like it. But other states actually do a good bit more in providing incentives for people who purchase and use solar equipment in their homes and businesses. And we were provided with, you know, kind of the chart showing what surrounding states do. Other states are doing more in the area of providing producer incentives for the production of biofuels. And then some states are not necessarily doing it budgetarily, but are instead by mandate saying, you know, X% of the diesel that is sold in the state has to be biofuel, 2% or 3% biofuel that's produced in state. And so that would not be a budgetary item, but a requirement that then drives demand and then drives production of biofuel. So these individuals all talk about their experiences in other states, what other states are doing, share those experiences with us, and that can be the basis of our discussion as we try to determine what we can do legislatively. Please.
jobs we're going to create. Do you have any sense of how much money these initiatives could
I really don't. I'd be hesitant to give it, although I've got some folks here from the energy side, Steve Walls, who I just recently announced as the head of the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy. Pat Gottschalk, my Secretary of Commerce and Trade. They might be able to follow up and provide you with some of that information. And if we do this right, it's not just money created in the economy in terms of new jobs, it's also money saved for consumers if we do some of the efficiency strategies correctly. We can help consumers and businesses save money. What we're trying to do on the energy side is very difficult. There are four, I think, overriding goals on energy that were fleshed out in the state's energy plan that we're trying to balance. We want to continue to have relatively low cost, reliable energy. All energy costs are going up, but it's been a benefit to Virginia that our costs have been low. It's helped businesses and it's helped consumers, especially people who are poor on fixed income. We want to rely more on native sources rather than foreign sources. We want to get better at conservation and efficiency. And finally, we want to do cleaner, and we want to make the production of energy cleaner and cleaner. Trying to balance all those four things is our challenge. And if we do that, it will both create jobs, but also it will save, have positive environmental benefits, but will also save consumers and businesses money. Other questions? All right, Tim. Tim, we have looked at everything, and again, I'll say what I said to when Rob asked earlier. I'm going to save the budget speech for the budget speech, but we've looked at, it has been very challenging to try to find the strategies to make things balance, and nothing is final until I present it next week. We're still working on some, making some adjustments, etc., but you'll hear about that next week.
Talking about the cleaner production side,
right.
Since the Climate Commission last week, I think, there's another proposal, big coal-fired plant in Surrey County.
Right.
Proposed. How does that square? I mean, can that be done and still, and they still pursue a?
I don't know. I don't know whether it can. I don't know enough about that particular proposal yet to know whether it would square with the recommendations made by the Climate Change Commission. My feeling about coal is this, that coal is the base load, 48% of Virginia's base load, and essentially the same percentage of the nation's base load. And the right strategy for coal in Virginia is to make that portion of the pie chart cleaner and then to make it smaller. So other sources of energy, nuclear, biomass, biodiesel, wind, solar, hydropower in some other states and possibly even here, coastal energy, those have to be increased so that the portion that's coal gets smaller and cleaner. Is the proposal that is on the table that came out last week consistent with that strategy? Without really digging into it, and I've not yet done it, working on the budget, I really can't comment on whether that will fit or not. All right, well, we're going to stay around and visit, so if you want to come up and chat a little bit, please feel free, but we'll be doing a whole series of things, again, under the Renew Virginia umbrella, and I want to thank all the leaders who are here who have shared their thoughts about what we can do in Virginia, what other states are doing, and you'll see some of their suggestions and advice as part of initiatives that we'll roll out in the future. Thanks very much.